The autumn rain drummed steadily against the windows of the Villa Tavern, a cozy pub nestled in the heart of Birmingham. Inside, the familiar sounds of football banter filled the air as regulars nursed their pints and debated Aston Villa's latest performances. The pub, decorated with decades of Villa memorabilia, had always been a sanctuary for supporters through thick and thin. Dave Richardson, a lifelong Villa fan in his 50s, sat at his usual spot near the bar, his weathered hands wrapped around a pint of bitter as he discussed the team's recent struggles with his mates. The conversation was typical for a Tuesday evening, passionate but tinged with the resigned optimism that characterized Villa supporters. "Mark my words," Dave said, gesturing with his glass. "This new manager knows what he's doing. Give him time, and we'll see Villa back where they belong." His friend Tony laughed, shaking his head. "You've been saying that for 20 years, Dave. Different managers, same old story." The pub's atmosphere was relaxed and welcoming, exactly the kind of place where football dreams were born and nurtured. The landlord, Jim Parker, had run the Villa Tavern for over 15 years. He knew every regular by name and their drink preferences by heart. The walls were covered with photographs from Villa's glory days, scarves donated by supporters, and newspaper clippings celebrating memorable victories. Unknown to the patrons enjoying their evening, plans were being made that would transform this ordinary Tuesday into something extraordinary. Earlier that day, Prince William's private secretary had made a series of discreet phone calls. The Prince of Wales, known for his genuine love of football and his role as president of the Football Association, had expressed interest in meeting Villa supporters in their natural habitat. The idea had come from William himself during a conversation about connecting with football communities across England. Rather than the usual formal meet and greets, he wanted something authentic. He remembered watching Villa matches with his father and understanding the deep emotional connection between clubs and their local communities. "I want to meet the real supporters," William had told his aide. "Not in some sterile corporate setting, but where they actually gather, where they share their hopes and frustrations over a pint." The choice of the Villa Tavern wasn't random. The pub had a reputation for being welcoming to supporters of all backgrounds. It was known for its community spirit, regularly hosting charity events and supporting local causes. Most importantly, it represented the heart of Villa's working-class roots. Jim Parker received the call that would change his life around 3 o'clock that afternoon. The voice on the other end was polite but official, asking if the pub might be available for a special visit that evening. At first, Jim thought it might be a prank call from one of his regulars. "You're telling me the Prince of Wales wants to come to my pub?" Jim asked, still not quite believing what he was hearing. "Yes, sir. His Royal Highness would like to spend some time with Villa supporters in an informal setting. We understand your establishment is well regarded in the community." The conversation continued with discussions about security arrangements, timing, and the need for absolute discretion. The visit would be low-key, with minimal security presence to maintain the pub's natural atmosphere. Only Jim would know in advance, and he was asked to continue operating normally. As the afternoon wore on, Jim found it increasingly difficult to concentrate on his usual tasks. He cleaned glasses with unusual vigor, rearranged bottles behind the bar unnecessarily, and checked the clock every few minutes. The weight of the secret felt enormous. How could he possibly keep this to himself? The security advance team arrived around 4:30, dressed in plain clothes and blending in as casual customers. They ordered drinks and positioned themselves strategically throughout the pub, their trained eyes noting every entrance, exit, and potential concern. To the regular customers filtering in after work, they appeared to be just another group of mates having an early evening drink. Sarah Mitchell, a Villa supporter since childhood, arrived around 5 o'clock for her weekly gathering with friends from work. She taught a local primary school and used these Tuesday evening sessions to unwind from the stresses of education. Her small group always occupied the same corner table, where they could see the television screens and participate in the broader pub conversations. "Did you see that interview with the new signing?" Sarah asked her friend Emma as they settled in with their drinks. "Seems like a decent lad, understands what Villa means to the community." Emma nodded enthusiastically. She worked as a nurse at Birmingham Children's Hospital and appreciated how football provided an escape from the emotional demands of her job. "That's what we need, players who understand they're not just representing a club, but a whole community's hopes and dreams." The conversation flowed naturally from football to work, family, and local gossip. These Tuesday gatherings have become a cherished tradition, a chance to maintain friendships despite busy schedules and life's constant demands. Meanwhile, Prince William was completing his final engagement of the day at a youth center in Birmingham City Center. He had spent the afternoon meeting young people involved in various community programs, and the visit had reinforced his belief in the importance of grassroots community work. As his official car wound through Birmingham streets toward the Villa Tavern, he felt genuinely excited about the evening ahead. "This is exactly what I hoped for," William told his private secretary as they approached the pub. "No red carpets, no formal protocols, just honest conversation with people who share a passion for football." The prince had changed from his formal attire into casual clothes: dark jeans, a button-down shirt, and a navy jacket. The goal was to blend in as much as possible while still maintaining appropriate dignity for his position. Back in the pub, the evening crowd was building steadily. Regular supporters mixed with occasional visitors, creating the vibrant atmosphere that made the Villa Tavern special. The conversation topics ranged from team tactics to transfer rumors, from family updates to work frustrations. Young Marcus Thompson, a 22-year-old apprentice electrician, held court near the dartboard with his analysis of Villa's defensive weaknesses. His passion for tactical discussions impressed older supporters who remembered debating similar issues decades earlier. Football had this unique ability to bridge generations, creating common ground between people who might otherwise have little in common. "The problem isn't individual players," Marcus insisted, gesturing enthusiastically. "It's how they work together as a unit. You need understanding, communication, trust. Same principles apply whether you're playing football or working on a construction site." His comments sparked broader discussions about teamwork, leadership, and the parallels between football and everyday life. These conversations represented the deeper significance of football in British culture, not just entertainment, but a lens through which people understood community, loyalty, and shared identity. At 6:15, Jim Parker received a discreet signal from one of the security team. The moment he had been anticipating and dreading in equal measure was approaching. He took a deep breath, checked his appearance in the mirror behind the bar, and tried to appear calm despite his racing heart. The pub door opened quietly, and Prince William stepped inside, followed discreetly by his protection officer. For a moment, the prince stood in the doorway, taking in the authentic atmosphere he had hoped to experience. The warm lighting, the buzz of conversation, the genuine laughter. This was exactly what he had envisioned. The immediate area near the door fell silent as recognition dawned on the closest customers. Dave Richardson, who had been mid-sentence in a story about Villa's 1982 European Cup victory, stopped speaking with his mouth slightly open. The pint in his hand remained frozen halfway to his lips. "Good evening, everyone," Prince William said with a warm smile, his voice carrying clearly in the sudden quiet. "Don't mind me. I'm just here to enjoy a pint and talk football like everyone else." The silence that had fallen over the Villa Tavern lasted only a few seconds, but it felt like an eternity to everyone present. Prince William's casual demeanor and genuine smile quickly broke the ice, and nervous laughter began to ripple through the room. The regulars, initially stunned by the unexpected royal presence, started to process what was happening. Jim Parker, the landlord, was the first to recover his composure. Years of customer service had taught him to handle unexpected situations with grace, though this certainly exceeded anything he had previously encountered. "Your Royal Highness," Jim began, his voice slightly shaky but gaining strength, "welcome to the Villa Tavern. What can I get you to drink?" William approached the bar with an easy stride, his relaxed body language helping to ease the tension in the room. "Please, just call me William while I'm here. I'd love a pint of whatever you recommend." And Perhaps you could introduce me to some of the Villa supporters I've heard so much about. The prince's down-to-earth approach had an immediate effect on the pub's atmosphere. Conversations slowly resumed as people realized this wasn't going to be a formal royal visit with rigid protocols and uncomfortable standing around. This was something entirely different, a genuine attempt to connect on equal ground. Dave Richardson, the veteran supporter who had been telling stories about Villa's glory days, found himself being introduced by Jim as one of the pub's most knowledgeable football historians. Still somewhat dazed by the surreal situation, Dave extended his hand tentatively. "I can't believe this is really happening," Dave admitted honestly. "I mean, I've supported Villa for 43 years through relegations and promotions, cup finals, and disasters. Never thought I'd be discussing it with the future King of England." William shook Dave's hand warmly and gestured toward an empty table near the bar. "Well, now you can add this to your collection of Villa stories. Mind if I join you? I'd love to hear about those 43 years. That's serious dedication." As they settled at the table with their pints, other supporters began to gather around at a respectful distance. The initial shock was wearing off, replaced by curiosity and excitement. Word was already spreading to other parts of the pub, and phones were discreetly appearing as people tried to capture this unprecedented moment. Sarah Mitchell, the primary school teacher, approached the group with her friend Emma. Both women had been Villa supporters since childhood and had never imagined finding themselves in such a situation. Sarah's teaching experience had given her confidence in speaking with people from all walks of life, but addressing a member of the royal family required a different kind of courage. "Your Royal Highness," Sarah began, then caught herself as she remembered his earlier request. "William, I teach at a local primary school, and many of my students are Villa supporters. They dream about playing for the club someday. What would you tell young people about following their football dreams?" William's face lit up with genuine interest. His work with various youth organizations had shown him the power of sport to inspire and motivate young people. "That's a fantastic question, Sarah. I think the most important thing is that football teaches you about more than just winning and losing. It's about teamwork, perseverance, dealing with disappointment, and celebrating together. Whether these children become professional footballers or not, those lessons will serve them throughout their lives." The conversation flowed naturally from youth development to the broader role of football in community building. Marcus Thompson, the young apprentice electrician, found himself drawn into the discussion when William noticed his Villa scarf and asked about his experiences as a younger supporter. "I started coming here when I turned 18, Marcus explained. "My dad brought me to my first match when I was 6, but the pub atmosphere was something different. It's where you really learn what being a Villa supporter means. It's not just about the 90 minutes on the pitch, it's about belonging to something bigger than yourself." William nodded thoughtfully, sipping his pint and clearly engaged with Marcus's perspective. That sense of belonging is incredibly important. I've seen it at grounds across the country. Football clubs aren't just businesses or entertainment. They're the heart of communities. They give people identity and connection. As the evening progressed, more supporters joined the conversation. The prince demonstrated genuine curiosity about their experiences, asking thoughtful questions and listening intently to their responses. He wanted to understand what Villa meant to them personally, how they had become supporters, and what kept them loyal through difficult seasons. Tony Williams, Dave's friend who had been skeptical about the new manager earlier, found himself explaining the emotional roller coaster of following a football club. "You invest so much emotionally," he told William. "Every match matters. Every signing gives you hope. Every defeat hurts personally. It's probably not rational, but it's real." William laughed and raised his glass. "I completely understand. I've been there myself with England matches. The hope, the nervous energy, the way your mood can be affected by results. It shows how much football means to people." The conversation naturally turned to memorable Villa moments. Dave Richardson launched into detailed accounts of European nights at Villa Park, FA Cup runs, and the characters who had played for the club over the decades. His enthusiasm was infectious, and Even William found himself caught up in the storytelling. "I remember watching some of those European matches on television," William admitted. "The atmosphere at Villa Park was incredible. You could feel the passion through the screen. What was it like being there in person?" Dave's eyes grew distant as he recalled those magical nights. "Nothing compares to it. 40,000 people united in hope, singing together, believing anything was possible. Those are the moments that make all the disappointments worthwhile. That's why we keep coming back, generation after generation." Emma, the nurse, shared her perspective on how football provided emotional release from the stresses of her work. "After a difficult day at the hospital, coming here or going to a match gives me a chance to focus on something completely different. It's therapeutic in a way. The community aspect helps too, knowing you're surrounded by people who share the same hopes and frustrations." William was struck by the emotional honesty of these conversations. Too often, his public engagements involved people telling him what they thought he wanted to hear. Here in the Villa Tavern, supporters were sharing genuine feelings and experiences without artificial politeness or excessive deference. The prince's security detail remained discreet but vigilant, positioned strategically throughout the pub while trying to maintain the natural atmosphere. Other customers continued their own conversations, though everyone was acutely aware of the extraordinary situation unfolding at the central table. Jim Parker worked behind the bar with unusual nervousness, serving customers while keeping one eye on the royal gathering. He had owned the pub for 15 years and hosted countless community events, but nothing had prepared him for this level of attention and responsibility. Every few minutes, he had to resist the urge to check whether everything was going smoothly. As the evening deepened, the conversation expanded beyond football to broader community issues. William learned about local challenges facing Birmingham residents, employment concerns, housing costs, and the impact of economic uncertainty on working families. The Villa supporters proved to be articulate advocates for their community, passionate about more than just football. "Football gives us something positive to focus on," Sarah explained. "When other things are difficult, work stress, family problems, financial worries, supporting Villa connects us to something hopeful. It reminds us that we're part of something larger and more enduring than our individual problems." This observation resonated deeply with William, who had seen similar patterns in communities across the country. Football clubs served as social anchors, providing continuity and identity even when other institutions seemed distant or unreliable. The prince found himself genuinely enjoying the evening, far more than many of his formal engagements. The conversation was authentic, the company was engaging, and the setting allowed for real connection rather than ceremonial interaction. He began to understand why his advisors had been initially hesitant about this informal approach. It was unpredictable and couldn't be carefully scripted. But that was precisely what made it valuable. As the evening continued, Prince William found himself drawn deeper into the passionate world of Villa supporters. The initial formality had completely dissolved, replaced by animated discussions about football tactics, player performances, and the eternal hope that drives every football fan. The prince discovered that his royal status, while acknowledged, was becoming secondary to his genuine enthusiasm for the beautiful game. Marcus Thompson had positioned himself strategically near William's table, and his tactical analysis was impressing everyone within earshot. The young electrician possessed an encyclopedic knowledge of modern football formations and wasn't shy about sharing his opinions on how Villa should approach their upcoming matches. "The key is pressing intensity," Marcus explained enthusiastically, using beer mats to demonstrate defensive positioning. "If Villa can win the ball back within 6 seconds of losing possession, they create chaos in the opposition structure. Liverpool perfected this approach, and there's no reason Villa can't adapt it to their squad." William leaned forward, genuinely intrigued by the tactical discussion. His role as president of the Football Association had exposed him to high-level strategic conversations, but Marcus's grassroots perspective offered fresh insights. "That's fascinating. Do you think Villa's current players have the fitness levels and mentality for that kind of high-intensity approach?" The question sparked a broader debate involving several supporters around the table. Dave Richardson argued that modern players were fitter than previous generations, but perhaps lacked the mental toughness of earlier eras. Tony Williams disagreed, insisting that contemporary footballers faced different pressures and challenges that required equal amounts of character. Sarah Mitchell offered a teacher's perspective on the discussion. I see this with my students too. Each generation faces different challenges and develops different strengths. Comparing across eras isn't always fair or useful. What matters is maximizing the potential of the players you have. William appreciated the thoughtful nature of the debate. These weren't casual fans offering simplistic opinions. They were knowledgeable supporters who understood football's complexities and could articulate sophisticated arguments about strategy and player development. The conversation was interrupted when a group of younger supporters approached the table hesitantly. They had been debating among themselves whether to interrupt the prince's discussion, finally working up the courage to introduce themselves. The group included students from the local university, apprentices from various trades, and young professionals who had been Villa supporters since childhood. "Sorry to interrupt," said Gemma, a 24-year-old social worker, "but we wanted to thank you for coming here tonight. This pub means everything to our community, and having you here shows that you understand what football culture really represents." William stood to greet the newcomers, shaking hands and encouraging them to join the expanding circle around his table. The pub's seating arrangement was being naturally reorganized as more people gravitated toward the royal conversation, creating an informal town hall atmosphere centered on football and community. "Please, don't apologize," William said warmly. "I'm here because I want to understand what Villa means to supporters like yourselves. Your perspective is exactly what I hope to hear tonight." Gemma's friend Jake, an apprentice carpenter, seized the opportunity to share his thoughts on football's role in youth development. Villa's academy programs are brilliant for local kids. They're not just teaching football skills, they're providing education, discipline, and opportunities. Some of my mates went through the system, and even though they didn't make it as professionals, the experience shaped their entire approach to life. This observation aligned perfectly with William's interests in youth development and education. Through his various charitable activities, he had seen how sports programs could transform young people's prospects and provide alternatives to negative influences. "That's exactly the kind of impact I love hearing about," William responded. "Football clubs have this unique ability to reach young people who might not engage with traditional educational institutions. They can teach life skills through sport in ways that resonate with different learning styles." The discussion evolved into a broader conversation about community investment and social responsibility. Villa supporters proved to be passionate advocates, not just for their team, but for the positive impact football could have on local development, youth opportunities, and community cohesion. Emma, the nurse, shared stories about how Villa players' hospital visits had lifted spirits during her most challenging shifts. You see children who are facing frightening medical procedures, and then their favorite player walks in to chat about football. The transformation is incredible. Suddenly, they're not thinking about their illness. They're talking about their dreams and their heroes. William was deeply moved by these accounts. His own charitable work had shown him the power of personal connection and attention, but hearing specific examples from healthcare professionals provided valuable insights into the ripple effects of community engagement. As the evening progressed, the prince noticed how naturally the conversation flowed between football and broader life topics. Villa supporters didn't separate their sporting passion from their daily experiences. Football was woven into their personal stories, their family traditions, and their community connections. Dave Richardson began sharing memories of attending matches with his late father, describing how Villa Park had served as a bonding ground across generations. "My dad brought me to my first match in 1978. I brought my son to his first match 25 years later. Now my grandson is old enough to start coming." It's not just about the football, it's about passing down family traditions and shared experiences. These multi-generational stories resonated strongly with William, who understood the importance of tradition and continuity in his own family context. The parallels between royal traditions and football traditions weren't lost on him. Both involved passing down values, rituals, and connections from one generation to the next. Tony Williams contributed his own family story, explaining how Villa had helped him bond with his stepchildren when he married their mother. Football gave us common ground when everything else felt complicated. We could go to matches together, celebrate victories, commiserate over defeats. It created shared memories that brought us together as a family. William found these personal narratives more compelling than statistical analyses or policy reports. They illustrated football's genuine impact on people's lives in ways that official documents couldn't capture. The emotional authenticity of these stories provided insights into community dynamics that formal research often missed. The Prince's visit was creating its own community moment within the Villa Tavern. Supporters who might normally occupy different areas of the pub were mingling, sharing stories, and participating in conversations they might not have initiated on a typical evening. The royal presence had catalyzed a deeper level of community connection. Jim Parker observed the evening's evolution with amazement and pride. His pub had hosted countless memorable nights over the years, but this was transcending anything in its history. The atmosphere was electric yet comfortable, exciting yet authentic. Regular customers were experiencing something extraordinary while maintaining the welcoming spirit that defined the Villa Tavern's character. Marcus Thompson returned to tactical discussions, this time focusing on Villa's historical playing styles and how they reflected Birmingham's industrial character. Villa has always been about hard work and determination. The great teams weren't necessarily the most skillful, but they had character that reflected the city's values. That's what supporters connect with, seeing their own work ethic and pride reflected on the pitch. William appreciated this connection between local identity and sporting culture. Different regions developed different football philosophies that reflected their social and economic characteristics. Understanding these connections provided insights into community values and aspirations that extended far beyond sport. The evening was reaching a natural crescendo as supporters realized they were experiencing something truly unique. Social media posts were beginning to appear, though most people were more focused on engaging directly with the Prince than documenting every moment. The immediate experience was too engaging to be filtered through digital devices. The atmosphere in the Villa Tavern had reached a remarkable equilibrium, respectful of William's position, yet genuinely relaxed and natural. As the evening deepened, the conversations became more personal and revealing, with supporters sharing stories that illustrated football's profound impact on their daily lives. A particularly touching moment occurred when elderly supporter Robert Fletcher approached the group hesitantly. At 78 years old, Robert represented Villa's oldest generation of fans, having first attended matches in the 1950s. His weathered hands shook slightly as he introduced himself, overcome by the significance of meeting the future king in his beloved local pub. "Your Royal Highness," Robert began, his voice trembling with emotion, "I never thought I'd live to see something like this. I've supported Villa through every decade since the 1950s. I've seen relegations, promotions, European nights, and heartbreaking defeats. But sitting in this pub, talking football with the Prince of Wales, this tops everything." William stood immediately to greet Robert properly, guiding him to a chair and ensuring he was comfortable. The Prince's genuine respect for the elderly supporter was evident in his careful attention and patient listening as Robert began sharing decades of Villa memories. "Tell me about the early days," William encouraged. "What was Villa Park like in the 1950s? How has supporting the club changed over all these years?" Robert's eyes lit up as he transported the group back to post-war Birmingham, describing packed terraces, community solidarity, and the role football played in rebuilding social connections after World War II. His stories painted vivid pictures of a bygone era when football was deeply embedded in working-class culture and community identity. "Matches were events for the whole community," Robert explained. Fathers would take their sons, grandfathers would pass down their season ticket locations, and the pub afterward was where everyone would analyze every kick, every decision, every moment. Football wasn't just entertainment, it was the heartbeat of the neighborhood. William listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about how social changes had affected football culture. Robert's perspective provided historical context that illuminated current community dynamics and helped explain the deep emotional connections between supporters and their clubs. Sarah Mitchell seized the opportunity to share her perspective as a female supporter navigating traditionally male-dominated football culture. When I started coming here regularly about 10 years ago, I sometimes felt like an outsider. But this community embraced me completely. Football has become much more inclusive, and places like the Villa Tavern reflect that positive change. This observation sparked a broader discussion about football's evolving demographics and the importance of welcoming supporters from all backgrounds. William had seen similar transformations across English football and was interested in hearing grassroots perspectives on inclusivity and community building. Emma added her thoughts on how football provided common ground across social and professional boundaries. In my work as a nurse, I meet people from every background imaginable. But when they hear I'm a Villa supporter, suddenly we have this immediate connection. Football breaks down barriers and creates understanding between people who might otherwise never find common ground. The prince was struck by these insights into football's unifying power. His royal duties often involved bringing different communities together, and he recognized valuable lessons in how football culture achieved similar goals through shared passion and identity. Marcus Thompson contributed a younger generation's perspective on modern football culture, discussing how social media and global connectivity had changed the supporter experience while maintaining core emotional connections. We can watch matches from anywhere in the world now, connect with Villa fans across the globe, and access more information about the club than ever before. But nothing replaces being here in this pub with these people sharing the real experience. This balance between technological advancement and authentic community connection resonated with William's own experiences managing traditional institutions in a rapidly changing world. The challenge of preserving meaningful traditions while embracing beneficial innovations was familiar territory for the royal family. As the evening progressed, supporters began sharing more personal stories about how Villa had helped them through difficult periods in their lives. These accounts revealed football's therapeutic and supportive functions within the community, providing stability and hope during challenging times. Dave Richardson spoke about how attending Villa matches had helped him cope with his wife's illness and eventual passing. When everything else in life felt uncertain and painful, Villa was still there. The routine of match days, the familiar faces in the pub, the shared emotions, they provided anchor points when everything else was falling apart. William listened with deep empathy, understanding how traditions and communities could provide essential support during personal crises. His own experiences with loss and grief had shown him the importance of maintaining connections and finding meaning in shared activities. Tony Williams shared his story of returning to football after military service, explaining how Villa Park had become a place where he could process difficult experiences and reconnect with civilian life. Coming back from deployment, everything felt different except Villa. The club was still there, the supporters were still passionate, and the pub welcomed me back like I'd never left. It helped me transition back to normal life. These military connections particularly interested William, given his own service background and ongoing work with veterans organizations. The role of football in providing community support for former service personnel highlighted another dimension of sports social value. The conversation naturally evolved into discussions about Villa's future prospects and the supporters' hopes for upcoming seasons. Despite years of disappointment and frustration, the optimism remained undiminished. This eternal hope impressed William as evidence of remarkable resilience and loyalty. Every season starts with possibility, explained Gemma, the young social worker. We analyze the new signings, debate the tactical changes, and convince ourselves this might be the year everything comes together. That hope sustains us through difficult periods and makes the eventual success even sweeter. William appreciated this perspective on optimism and perseverance. The ability to maintain hope despite repeated setbacks demonstrated character traits that extended well beyond football into personal and professional life. Jim Parker, the landlord, finally joined the conversation after ensuring all other customers were well served. His pride in hosting such an extraordinary evening was evident, though he remained somewhat overwhelmed by the unprecedented nature of the situation. In 15 years of running this pub, I've never experienced anything like tonight, Jim admitted. You've shown genuine interest in our community, listened to our stories, and treated everyone with respect. This is what community should look like, people from different backgrounds coming together around shared interests. William thanked Jim for his hospitality and for creating the kind of establishment where authentic community connections could flourish. The Prince recognized that venues like the Villa Tavern served as vital social infrastructure, providing spaces where democracy and community engagement could operate naturally. As the evening entered its final phase, supporters began expressing gratitude for the unprecedented opportunity to share their perspectives directly with a member of the royal family. The conversations had created genuine connections that transcended formal protocols and ceremonial interactions. The Prince's protection officer discreetly indicated that departure time was approaching, but William was reluctant to end such engaging conversations. The evening had provided insights into community dynamics, social cohesion, and the role of sport in contemporary British society that formal briefings could never have conveyed. As the evening drew toward its conclusion, Prince William realized this spontaneous pub visit had exceeded every expectation. What began as an experiment in authentic community engagement had evolved into something far more meaningful, a genuine exchange of ideas, experiences, and perspective that would influence his understanding of modern British community life for years to come. The supporters gathered around his table had shared their hearts with remarkable openness, treating him not as a distant royal figure, but as someone genuinely interested in their world. This level of trust and authenticity was precisely what William had hoped to achieve by stepping outside traditional royal protocols. Robert Fletcher, the elderly supporter whose decades of villa memories had captivated the group, made one final contribution to the evening's conversation. With characteristic dignity, he stood slowly and raised his nearly empty pint glass in an impromptu toast. "Your Royal Highness," Robert began, his voice stronger now despite his age, "tonight you've shown us that leadership isn't about staying distant from the people you serve. You've sat with us, listened to our stories, and treated our passion with respect. This is how communities should work: different people, same hopes, shared experiences." The spontaneous toast was immediately embraced by everyone present. Glasses were raised throughout the pub as supporters who had been part of the conversation, and those who had observed from respectful distances joined together in acknowledging the evening's significance. The moment felt genuinely ceremonial without being artificially formal. William stood and raised his own glass, clearly moved by Robert's words and the evening's entire experience. "Thank you all for welcoming me into your community tonight. I came here hoping to learn about football culture, but you've taught me something much more important about the strength of British communities and the power of shared passion to bring people together." The Prince's response prompted enthusiastic applause that filled the Villa Tavern with warmth and genuine appreciation. This wasn't polite, ceremonial clapping. It was heartfelt recognition of an extraordinary evening that had created lasting memories for everyone involved. As the formal toast concluded, supporters began approaching William individually to thank him personally and share final thoughts. Each interaction was brief but meaningful, representing the kind of direct connection between monarch and people that the royal family had been seeking to strengthen in recent years. Marcus Thompson, the young tactical analyst who had impressed everyone with his football knowledge, expressed hopes that the evening might inspire other opportunities for grassroots engagement. Tonight proves that when people from different backgrounds meet as equals around shared interests, amazing conversations happen. Maybe this could be a model for bridging other divides in society. William was struck by this observation and its broader implications. The evening had demonstrated how football could serve as a bridge between different social classes, generations, and perspectives. The lessons learned here might indeed be applicable to other community engagement challenges facing modern Britain. Sarah Mitchell, representing the teaching profession's perspective, offered her thoughts on the evening's educational value. My students won't believe their teacher spent the evening discussing football with the Prince of Wales. But more importantly, tonight shows them that passion and knowledge are respected regardless of someone's background or position in society. The Prince appreciated this educational dimension and recognized how the evening's story might inspire young people to pursue their interests with confidence and dedication. The message that genuine enthusiasm and thoughtful analysis were valued at the highest levels of society could have powerful motivational effects. Emma, the nurse who had shared stories about Villa players visiting her hospital, made a practical suggestion that captured the evening's spirit perfectly. Perhaps we could arrange for some of these conversations to continue in different settings. Villa supporters would love to show you around Villa Park properly, and I'm sure other community groups would welcome similar opportunities for genuine dialogue. This suggestion aligned with William's growing interest in expanding informal community engagement. The evening had proven that authentic conversations produced better insights than formal presentations or carefully scripted events. Future royal activities might benefit from incorporating similar grassroots approaches. Dave Richardson, whose 43 years of Villa support had anchored many of the evening's stories, offered final reflections on the experience's significance. Tonight reminded me why I fell in love with football in the first place. It wasn't just about the matches, it was about being part of something bigger, sharing emotions with strangers who become friends, and finding hope even in difficult times. William nodded thoughtfully, recognizing how Dave's words captured broader themes about community resilience and social connection that extended far beyond sport. These insights would inform his future approaches to public service and community leadership. As the departure time finally arrived, the Prince made his way around the pub, personally thanking Jim Parker for his hospitality and acknowledging other supporters who had contributed to the evening's success. His genuine warmth and accessibility had transformed what could have been an awkward formal visit into a celebration of community spirit. Jim Parker, still somewhat overwhelmed by the evening's unprecedented nature, expressed his gratitude for being chosen to host such an extraordinary event. This pub has always been about bringing people together around shared passions. Tonight proved that principle works at every level of society. You've honored our community by treating us as equals and friends. The landlord's words reflected the evening's most important achievement, demonstrating that meaningful dialogue could occur across social boundaries when people approached each other with mutual respect and genuine curiosity. As Prince William prepared to leave, he made commitments to maintain connections with the Villa Tavern community and to explore opportunities for similar grassroots engagement in other locations. The evening had proven that informal community connections could provide valuable insights while strengthening relationships between institutions and the people they served. The Prince's departure was marked by warm handshakes, genuine smiles, and promises to follow Villa's progress throughout the upcoming season. Several supporters joked that they expected royal attendance at future matches, while others offered invitations to return to the pub whenever official duties permitted. Walking toward his waiting car, William reflected on how the evening had exceeded his most optimistic expectations. The conversations had been intellectually stimulating, emotionally genuine, and socially enlightening. Most importantly, they had demonstrated that effective leadership required listening to people's authentic experiences rather than relying solely on official reports and formal briefings. News of the evening's events began spreading immediately through social media and traditional news outlets. Photographs and stories from the Villa Tavern quickly gained international attention, not because of any dramatic incidents or controversial statements, but because they captured something rare in modern public life: authentic human connection across social boundaries. The supporters who had participated in the evening's conversations found themselves reflecting on the experience for days and weeks afterward. Many reported feeling more connected to their community and more optimistic about the possibility of bridging social divides through shared interests and mutual respect. For Prince William, the evening represented a template for future community engagement that prioritized authentic dialogue over ceremonial protocols. The insights gained from listening to Villa supporters' perspectives would influence his approach to public service and his understanding of contemporary British community life. The Villa Tavern itself became something of a landmark overnight, with supporters from across the Birmingham area and beyond making pilgrimages to the pub where their prince had shared pints and conversation with ordinary fans. Jim Parker found himself retelling the evening's story countless times, each recounting reinforcing the memory's significance for everyone who had been present. Most importantly, the evening had demonstrated that the future of royal engagement lay not in maintaining traditional distances, but in creating opportunities for genuine connection and mutual understanding. Prince William's visit to the Villa Tavern would be remembered not as a ceremonial obligation, but as a genuine celebration of community spirit and shared humanity that transcended formal boundaries and social hierarchies.